Once again, this is Flightdeck Live. The Alouettes Flightdeck podcast is proud to present another live stream. Once again, kind of last minute, but we're just going to roll with this. Talk about I guess you can call it, would you call it a big win tonight against the Ottawa Red Blacks in preseason action?
Well, they made that kind of comment on, oh, by the way, I'm Tim Capper, that's Cliffy D. They kind of made that comment, and it's true that I think that seeing how these guys can react in circumstances like this can bode well easily for the team going forward, especially in the regular season. So if they can come back like this and have they had two quarterbacks this time around. Wasn't just Davis Alexander leading the Alouettes to the win. I think it's a big win. I think it's a big win for the team. I think, as I said, it's an overall positive for the team for preseason and what it could be like going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was a chance for a lot of the guys that we had said were, again, I hate to use the term bubble players, but these were guys that they had to have a good game tonight to be hopefully invited back for the second preseason game, which will be played at Percival Molson Stadium next Friday against the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
No, that's true. And obviously we saw some stuff near the end of the game, too, with Davis Alexander taking that shot. He looks to be okay. Well, I guess we'll see going forward. But, it's a normal preseason game. It's funny. I commented earlier tonight to my wife, and I said, I hate preseason games sometimes because it's more than a regular season game, obviously. But in this type of situation, it's a necessary evil type of thing. So, So what were your thoughts, Cliffy, on the game itself?
Very slow, unless you love field goal kickers. Very slow at a lot of times, but I think once both teams really started finding their form, because I think like towards the fourth quarter, that's when you really saw both Ottawa and Montreal really start to figure things out. There was a couple of nice plays here and there, but by and large, it was just getting downfield and settling for field goals. Like when I thought Trevor Harris left for free agency. That's kind of how it felt like to me. It's like you make a couple of nice plays, you get downfield, and then you settle for three. You settle for three. And hey, listen, props to both Lewis Ward and Jose Maltos for coming up clutch when it came time to do it. I mean, that was just a fantastic effort, especially Jose Maltos basically called game with that. And that final drive, like Mike Glass, just marched everybody. Like the glass did not shatter because he marched downfield, put the Alouettes in a position to win this game, and looked very, very solid in doing so.
It's true, but the defense really was what shined tonight. I mean, we don't have the stats in front of us. CFL Live was not working. We would like to have something, but this seems to be the second or third game in a row now that they weren't working properly. But all in all, it's funny. Defense looked pretty good. Look at what they did in the first half. How they were able to hold the number ones for the Red Blacks to basically 12 points in the first half. But the problem is, though, was with the actual offense itself. Caleb Evans looked horrible. I'm sorry.
You think
every time that he came in, he did not gel. I don't know what it was, or whether it was jitters because he was coming back for the first time to Ottawa for the first time on a different team. I don't know. But yeah, Caleb Evans, in my opinion, he just really did not look good.
No, I have to agree, unfortunately. And maybe it was just jitters. Maybe it was the fact that I guess in his head it's like, okay, I'm going back to the team that basically gave up on me, that didn't think enough of me to keep me around and let me go to free agency and sign with Montreal. So I'm hoping that's all it was with him, because again, we saw him in training camp, and he's got the mechanics down. He definitely has the talent for sure to be able to compete in this league. And maybe when it's all said and done, maybe he will just be the short yardage specialist for the Alouettes. But I mean, when you're tapped to get into the game and start acting as a bona fide quarterback, you've got to be ready. And I don't know, I just didn't think Caleb Evans looked ready. I mean, he looked like, capable at times, but when it really counted, kind of fell flat. Like there's a lot of errant passes and a couple of moves that he made that kind of ended up working out, but at the same time, you can't hang your hat on that. Like that is not a way to win a starting job or even a backup job in the Canadian Football League.
No, it's true. I mean, and David Alexander looked better towards the end of the game. Obviously, he led the Alouettes to their only touchdown drive in the fourth quarter, probably against the Ottawa Threes or more. But Davis looked okay at points. I still think we'll curious to see what he does next week and how many reps that he gets, considering Cody Fajardo is going to get the start next week, next Friday. So, and Mike Glass looked good. So it's running game was almost non-existent, but there were quite a few wide receivers that actually did stand out during this game.
Yeah. For example, Austin Mack. Holy cow. This was his coming out party, he did a very admirable job. Didn't find the end zone, but had some really, really nice catches. Regardless of who was throwing him the football, he looked very aware of everything around him and didn't look out of place in this offense.
No, not at all. And it's, again, I don't have the roster in front of me. I'm still getting, it's like I mentioned in the podcast in the last couple of weeks, getting used to these new numbers and names.
Yep.
One thing I did notice, by the way, totally different that I'm finding from compared to last year is Cole Speaker. Completely different type of training camp this year versus last year. He's made, I would imagine he's made the team already, but he just doesn't, I don't know, maybe they're not putting him in the same type of situation. It wasn't the same Cole Speaker that played in the last game of the season last year in Toronto, the last regular season game. I don't know. It may be a different type of Cole Speaker this year.
Like you felt he was maybe complacent, maybe just was not willing to take that extra step and really show out when he had the opportunity to do so?
Well, not necessarily, but I mean, I also need to remember too that considering how many wide receivers the Alouettes have brought into camp this year, so I mean they got to try out some more guys. But as I said, there are some guys that I don't think got any targets at all this game. Considering, as I said, that our running game was basically non-existent. But that's a test for the O-line itself, and we'll see. I think next week when we have our three-headed monster playing for a large chunk of the game itself next week between Stanback, Antwi, and Fletcher. I think that'll be a really true test of our O-line and being able to see how they can run. And the same thing for Cody. If they can protect him so he can actually sling the ball, and let's see what he can actually do in an Owls uniform.
Mm-hmm. No, there's definitely a lot to like, especially defensively. Like I really felt that a lot of these there's a couple of ones and twos there, but I mean for the most part, a lot of these guys we didn't see a whole lot of. Kabian Ento, wow. I felt he stepped up and made a very, very solid contribution this evening.
Yeah, Tyrell Richards too, man, especially there at the end of the game, man. And first round draft pick Uguak also.
Yeah. He got in there. Zach Lindley too. He put the wood to guys a couple times, and I mean, I will say one thing: like a lot of the defensive starters this evening are no doubt going to be backups this year for sure, but they looked impressive. They looked like they could compete, and they can give the guys like the Marc-Antoine Dequoise and the Najee Murray's, like they can give these guys a run for their money.
Yeah. What are your thoughts coming up? I mean, as obviously, for next week versus Hamilton, which will be Friday evening over at Percival Molson. What do you think needs to be worked on versus what was done this week? Obviously, a lot of these wide receivers are going to get a little bit more of a look. I think they actually want to see, like I mentioned before, how the O-line does for Cody and for the running game. Anything that you saw tonight that if you were head coach of the Alouettes, that you would go ahead and put emphasis on next week?
Definitely the running game. Again, the only starter from last year that played tonight was Walter Fletcher, and obviously he was on a pitch count. You're not going to want to do anything to injure him because, again, this is a preseason game purely for evaluation. There's a chance for the guys like A.J. Rose and the other running back, his name escapes me at this moment, but those guys didn't get a whole lot of reps, and as a result, didn't look all that good either. So I'm sure next week you're going to see William Stanback, you're going to see Joshua Nantwi and Walter Fletcher rotated back in, and they're going to be given a good part of the reps, and maybe that's going to make all the difference when it comes to the offensive line, trying to create lanes for them and trying to give them the opportunity to run the ball. Like, I think tonight was just an example of let the quarterbacks play, let them find the receivers, let them develop that chemistry, and the running game. Okay, we'll work on that a little bit, but it wasn't the focal point of the offense tonight.
No. And what are your thoughts on the return game? It started off really slow, but near the end of the game, it actually picked up quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Tyler Snead returning kicks in camp sessions today. The times that we were there, we saw Tyler Snead mostly returning, but James Letcher, wow,
yeah,
phenomenal. I mean, like there's something here. I mean, again, I don't think Chandler Worthy still has anything to worry about as far as being the returner for this team, but Letcher, he got himself noticed. I mean, he could very well end up on the practice roster at the very least, if not. Finding a way to get this guy onto the roster so that both he and Worthy can return kicks. Like, he had some really, really nice returns. And wasn't it funny that he's wearing number 89? And last year, Fabian Guerra with the Alouettes in preseason was wearing 89.
Yeah.
And both these guys balled out. I mean, I don't know if it's just something about wearing that particular number in preseason and all of a sudden you are a, offensive dynamo. I don't know, but Letcher looked really, really good in returns tonight.
I'm trying to think of any other aspects. Obviously, it was very interesting. David Cote completely had the night off. Obviously, the Owls won on a walk-off by a former Red Blacks kicker on top of that.
It's funny. Jose Maltos had the game that I think Caleb Evans was hoping to have this evening.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But again, it's I don't know what the Owls are going to do. I mean, the Owls have gone with a separate kickers last year. I think for the first time since the 80s. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Owls do this year. And I don't know if how many kickers that the Alouettes are going to keep on their roster because as an example of Mike Glass, I know he's came in as a quarterback. But he could easily, be the quarterback for the practice team. Same thing with some of these kickers could easily be there too. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Owls do. And by the way, speaking of the Owls, man, props to them. But man, they got a 3-hour trip back home tonight.
I don't envy them. I mean, they'll be leaving Ottawa, and it explains why there's not going to be any training camp sessions tomorrow in Trois-Rivières because you're going to be rolling in probably around 2:00 in the morning. So getting up at 8:00 or getting up at 6 a.m., I should say, to go have another 2 a day, that would be cruel. So thankfully tomorrow the Alouettes don't have anything scheduled on the field. They'll be over at the Aigle de Trois-Rivières Frontier League baseball game, doing a bit of, I guess, a meet and greet with the fans there. So that'll be nice for them. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm still disappointed that they're not going to be doing anything on the Sunday. Would have been kind of cool. I would have actually truly, if they were going to have an actual training camp session, I would have actually made the effort to go out there. But I guess they want to really maybe have that extra day to let the players rest, and as well, maybe the coaches too really evaluate the film from tonight's game and see what worked, what didn't, and maybe at that point make a decision into which direction you want to go as far as the upcoming game against Hamilton. And maybe at that point they'll start really making some hard decisions.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. By the way, I made a comment early on in the game, and I put something on socials. And actually, Joshua Nantwi actually liked it. What are your thoughts on those very, very noticeable yellow Videotron patches?
Couldn't miss them if you tried. I mean, especially against a blue and red backdrop, that yellow really pops. So if Pierre-Carl Pelado wanted to advertise his company, that's the way to do it. And lo and behold, they're there. I mean, you couldn't miss them if you tried.
No, I think everybody, and I'd forgotten too that the Red Blacks actually have the green TD logo on their, I guess their whites, the white jerseys. So it'll be interesting to see if the Alouettes continue with the Videotron stuff on the home and the roads. And I can only imagine if they're going to wear them on their new thirds. That may clash even more when we find out whatever color that's going to be.
Could be, but I mean, it's all about getting eyes on your product. And obviously, when you're the owner of Quebecor, who owns Videotron, if you want to get that advertising, especially on TSN, which is a Bell Media company, there's no better way to do it than with a big old patch right on the just above your chest here.
Yeah, exactly. If you're Coach Moss and the rest of the coaching staff, how are you feeling after this game, do you think?
I want to say you're encouraged. I mean, again, like preseason wins count for nothing in the standings. For them, I want to see what kind of evaluation they're going to be making. Like, what decisions are they going to be making? I'm sure as the minute they get on the bus and head back to Montreal, or Trois-Rivières, I should say, they're probably going to be starting to break down stuff immediately. They're going to probably compare notes and see what they found to be interesting, what worked, what didn't, who should be given more reps in practice, and who maybe is going to have to really step up. And I don't know at which point do you go to the player themselves and say, listen, you had the opportunity to do something amazing and you didn't quite do it. And for any number of reasons, but this is your chance to do it. Like, this is your chance to shine. And you only have a finite number of opportunities. And especially next week when the starters are going to get their reps in too, that's less opportunity for you. Like, if you have just a little chance, like for example, Keishan Abram, who everybody's been hyping this guy all week last week. He did okay, but for the most part was kind of invisible. So, I mean, this is a great opportunity to make something happen. And, okay, if your name's not called, that's one thing. But he did get a couple of opportunities, and I just really didn't find that he did anything with it. So, again, maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe it was just the play calling didn't quite work with his particular skill set. Hard to say, really, at this point. I mean, I know the first preseason game, it's really hard to get a feel for this coaching staff and how they plan to operate. Again, it's all speculation at this point, but that's just one example of one player that maybe didn't quite take the opportunity that was given to him. Same thing with Caleb Evans. Like, you knew he was motivated, and he's not a rookie. He's been in training camps before, so he knows when your number is called, you have to take up the opportunity. You have to take advantage of it, especially, too, if you were actually going into this game with a chip on your shoulder and wanting to prove yourself against your former team. I don't think he truly proved anything. Like, other than making a couple of nice plays here and there, like, there was nothing there that said, oh, yeah, this is definitely going to be QB number 2.
Yeah. Also, another person that I don't think we really saw much of tonight, unless it was mostly on special teams, was national wide receiver Furvius. Nothing, as far as I know, from number 70 at all.
No, his number wasn't called either. I mean, again, we saw what he can do in camp. He definitely does. There's definitely talent there. Maybe once again, it was just a matter of, okay, we want to evaluate this guy, and not necessarily you. So it's hard to say. Like, is that a vote of confidence, even though you're not playing, or is it a matter of, well, we just got to find a spot for you, and that's all it takes. So
yeah,
really hard to say. And I guess we'll see what happens when they get back to training camp sessions this coming week, and then also to next Friday at Percival Molson Stadium.
Isn't there a cut-down session also, I think, this week? Or is it after the final game? I'm trying to remember how many cut-down sessions are. Obviously, they had one a week ago when they had the cut-down to 75.
Right. I believe now there's no you can cut players if you want to, but you're not obligated to reach a certain number until the end of preseason.
Yeah.
So I think there's no official cut-down day again, if you will, other than once your preseason game is finished, and then you can start making the evaluations and just making your cuts at that point.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate everybody joining us on our first Insta Live. If you happen to miss our Three Rivers, our Trois-Rivières first ever Flightdeck Live, you can head over to our YouTube page and check it out. That just do a search for it's youtube.com/Alouettes Flightdeck. Socials, Alouettes FL Deck on Twitter. Also check AlouettesFlightDeck.ca for all of our historical shows that we have there. And I said, this is something we're going to try to do more of, and we really appreciate everybody who's joined us.
Yeah, if you folks are watching, or you end up watching this after the fact, because we'll try to archive this and put it out for you folks to see. By all means, let us know in the comments hit us up on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or even here on Instagram. You know where to find us. Once again, www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. Pretty much takes you anywhere you need to go. As if you want to get in touch with me, you want to get in touch with Tim, and just let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. And as they say, if we're doing great, tell a friend. If we're not doing great, tell us. So, Tim, any final thoughts for this first preseason game for the Alouettes?
I was obviously happy with how it ended. I mean, yes, it was a preseason game. I'm just really looking forward to this Friday, getting back into Percival Molson Stadium. But I want to see some improvement, especially from our 2, 3, and 4s when it comes to quarterback. And as I said, O-line, D-line did amazing tonight. I just want to see it continue, and with the starters going in. So that's what I'll be looking for coming this Friday.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much in the same boat. Like, there's quite a few players that I felt did a really solid job, and I think their efforts are going to be rewarded when they line up in Montreal against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Even more curious now to see, like, if this is how they play with their 2s and 3s. I'm really going to be curious to see, like, the guys that stayed home or stayed in cap, so to speak. Now I'm even more anxious and curious to see how they're going to do when they get their chance to shine next week against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So it's going to be, I think, very interesting, especially too knowing that Bo Levi Mitchell will be coming to Montreal. There's no question about that. All their starters are going to be there too. Even though a lot of their starters are playing tomorrow against Toronto, I'm sure a lot of the starters are going to be going to Montreal as well, because once again, your second preseason game is essentially a dress rehearsal. It's basically your chance to show what you can do. Like, for example, Ottawa, they played a lot of their starters tonight because it was their home preseason game.
Yeah.
So it made sense for some of their better known players to, even if it was just limited action, they got a chance to get out there and the fans were able to see their superstars, if you will, for even if it was just for a little bit. Now it's going to be Montreal's turn. Like, now we're going to see the Cody Fajardos, the Marc-Antoine Dequois, the William Stanbacks. Those are the guys that I know the Alouettes fans are really excited to see again. Those are the guys that are going to be leaned on very heavily to make this team as successful as possible. But the young guys that were there tonight, the lesser-known players that stood up and made some noise, again, Austin Mack, Courtney Davis, Mike Glass, like, these are guys that I'm very excited to see again. And now being able to see these guys live, I'm definitely curious to see how they're going to perform in front of their hometown fans. So it's going to be, I think, a very interesting preseason game next Friday, and we're getting that much closer to the season starting, Tim. And if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will.
Exactly. If you happen to miss our lead up to the game this week, make sure you go back and listen to episode 197. It's available over at alouettesflightdeck.ca or any podcast host. Again, we appreciate everybody joining us, and again, bigger and better things for the Alouettes Flight Deck in 2023.
Absolutely. So once again, folks, the Montreal Alouettes did win their first preseason game this evening against the Ottawa Red Blacks at TV Place by a final score of 22-21. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking out the Alouettes Flight Deck, and we'll see you guys next week. How do you close this thing?